So we request for your support and feedback. So basically, I would like to hand over to Moses to take us through the proposal, and then I think Moses will do that for the next 15-20 minutes. Then after that, we will have questions, comments, and feedback from you and the way forward. So we may not have enough time to introduce ourselves because we would have loved to hear that. I would like to know the team that we're interacting with. Of course, some of you, we are known to each other, but of course the others. So I don't know whether we can do just a name and where you're coming from, just in 30 seconds so that we can understand each other. Is that okay? Yeah, perfect. So I will begin with this lady here. Yeah.
I'm Goretti. It's on. Good afternoon. I'm Goretti Amriat. I represent Digital Woman Uganda.
Sandra Cheng Gugnet.
Okay. Aaron Muhammad from Hive Corp.
Yes, because we are
online. Okay. Tona Nisima Prudential Assurance.
Edwin Wanyama, Collaboration International ICT Policy for East and Southern Africa. CIPESA.
Abakar Suleiman from Kabul-Tech IT Solutions.
Joshua Tamba, I'm from Rock Telecom.
Nweza Andrew, Hub Ambassador.
My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. I'm a journalist with Media Challenge Initiative.
My name is Maurice Muzini. I'm a data scientist.
I'm called Innocent Akamprera, and I'm a student of statistics from Makerere University.
Angi Shemere from Swe, Uganda.
Priscilla Adong, data scientist at Airco Makerere.
This engineer by Mugisha.
Dafin Kunda, Communications and Engagement, Sunbird AI.
Martin Gordon Mubanjizi, UN Pulse Lab Kampala.
Jennifer Nana is my name, from Hands of Women, Uganda, Gulu.
Okay, thank you very much everyone for the introductions. Now I think we get started. Moses, please, if you may, you could tell us what you have for us. So please use the microphone and don't mind whether you're hearing yourself because it's on already.
Okay, thank you very much. Once again, Professor Moses Muhuzi is my name. I am Executive Director at the Universal Institute of Research and Innovations. That is the organization that is working with the Total Development Network on the Open Data Analytics project. But sometimes you can also find me at the mountains of the Moon University in Fort Potro. Basically, this presentation, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, we shall be talking about data governance in Uganda, and specifically, we shall be looking at the urban context. You can, okay. So, just in brief, in terms of the background, Open Data Analytics is an initiative of Total Development Network and the Universal Institute of Research and Innovations that which was established in 2019 with support from the Swedish International Development Agency under the ICT for Democracy Network in East Africa, project management by SPESA. So this initiative has a program strategy which is broader for 2022-2026, and it is supported by the Hewitt Foundation based in the US. So this new strategy targets, among other things, to contribute to establishing robust data collection, evidence generation systems in new Ugandan cities in order to realize well-organized smart cities. So basically, we are looking at the urban context. And given the fact that there have been a number of cities that have been created in the recent past in Uganda, we are looking at how Kampala city is operating and how it has been organized. So we are looking at learning lessons from the current cities, the old cities. For example, Kampala. Many people have looked at its infrastructure, its organization, and many people have not admired a lot of things in Kampala. So we are asking ourselves, when these newly created cities are established, are they also going to follow the same path Kampala has taken, or there is something that we should be able to learn from Kampala so that we can be able to use data to do what we call informed policy formulation and implementation in these newly created cities. So for now, for the start, we are undertaking a baseline study, and as the name suggests, baseline means we are collecting baseline data to inform what should be done in the newly created cities. And we're not looking at all the newly created cities. Specifically, we're looking at the Fort Portal Tourism City and the Hoima City. And there are reasons why we specifically chose those two for the baseline study because of their unique features. Number one, the Fort Portal Tourism City is the only tourism city that has been newly created. The other cities are cities. But this tourism city, it means it has a unique context, which is tourism. And what type of tourism do we need to see happening in Fort Portal Tourism City? How should this city be planned as a tourism city? Should it be planned the same way as other cities, or should, because of its unique context, it should be planned as a tourism city? And remember, if you have been in Fort Portal is gifted by nature in a number of ways. But the most important, specifically, is that out of the 10 national parks that we have in Uganda, 4 are in and around Fort Portal. And there are a lot of other tourism attractions in the area. So based on its past and current geographical location, natural resources that it has, it was planned and it is being planned as a tourism city. So that unique context made us select Fort Portal as one of the cities for this baseline study, and then also for data generation to plan its establishment. The second one is Hoima. Some of you have been in Hoima. When you are in Hoima, already people say you are floating on oil. You are in the oil city. But we know from the past, oil has been considered gold, but at the same time, a curse. Looking at a number of countries where oil has not really benefited people in terms of development. So, but most importantly, oil development, extraction, exploration, it has a lot of environmental consequences, a lot of pollution. But again, we see Murchison Falls National Park is one of the highly visited national parks in Uganda by tourists. But at the same time, we find that that is the same place where there is oil exploration highly proposed, and also the city is being planned to be developed as an oil city. So also that unique context enabled us to select Hoima as a city of focus. So basically in those two, we are collecting data at the baseline level so that we can see where are these cities starting from in terms of planning, and when we collect the data figures, and with the hope that we make interventions in terms of the program strategy for policy-based research-based policy development, then we can be able to see that these cities are planned as unique cities. Some people have called them smart cities, or cities which are actually on their way to what is sustainable development, as very good case examples. Next. So here basically we present, I will not go into the details, but this is at the theoretical level, what we are planning to see in terms of change. So I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I can point it out. This process, we're looking at the context, which is the external dimension. So these cities that we have talked about, Hoima and Fort Portal, they are not working in isolation. They are working under a central government context. So we're looking at that as external macro level, what exists at that level. And then we look at the internal dimension within the cities, what is happening. So to summarize this, we are looking at the demand for evidence. If cities are planning for road infrastructure, for tax revenue generation, for many other things. What evidence are they using to make those plans and to make those decisions? So, do they need evidence? Then we go to the second level here, we look at the evidence generation, examples of the dimensions to consider, type of evidence. Here, of course, we're talking about in terms of data. What is the type of data? The quality, okay? Of course, in the plenary, people are talking about data, Facebook data, WhatsApp data. What quality is that data, and can we use that data to plan? We look at other in terms of timeliness. People are talking about data, 2017 data. Is it relevant now for planning? So then we move to use of intervention. For example, once we have generated this data, we should be able to see how is it incorporated in the planning. So that is why we look at the user intervention. So we look at capacity building. We know that in some of our municipalities, in our cities, we find some people have been working in those cities, just as the example was pointed out in the plenary, that even they don't know where the switch of a laptop or a computer is. So now we're talking about capacity building. When you say, okay, there is data, online data, you can consult this kind of website, you can see this platform, are they able to use? So look at the awareness raising. Some of the points which we're talking about in the plenary about people rejecting using some of this data. For some reasons which are good, but also for some selfish reasons. So access, champions, mentors, organizations. So we look at the whole of this process, because of time we will not go through it, until we look at the development impact, where policy performance and impact, and the way the systems change. So at this stage, we are here at the demand for evidence, looking at do we need data at the city level to plan, and then secondly, evidence generation. Which evidence, what type of data do we need? Who is there to use it? How should it be generated? All those processes. So that eventually when we get information here, we shall set our baseline. And through this program strategy, we shall be able to implement interventions, working with these cities to be able to see the change happening until evidence is used, which impacts policy. So the main objective of our baseline study is to produce knowledge for practitioners, public and private, to guide urban data and evidence generation projects in evidence-informed policy-making field. So this is evidence-informed, not evidence-based. So we are looking at how we can be able to use this evidence to inform policy. So basically, we shall be able to work with the public and private practitioners to generate this evidence. Next. So we have a number of objectives here. Number one is to determine the state of current data available that is used in the planning and decisions in the newly created established cities. So, do these cities have data? So that is the question which we are, for example, shall be looking at. If this city says, yes, we have data, where is it? In which form is it? How complete is it? How disaggregated is it? How usable is it? Okay? If you say we don't have data, why? How are you basing your decisions when you are planning your budget for the next financial year? When you are planning projects, on what basis do you plan them? Okay. Then we look at to examine the nature of specific city authorities' routine decision and policy making data and evidence needs. Okay? So we're looking at planning. For example, we find that in the cities, we have the political wing and the technical wing. So how do they come together? How do they plan together? Based on what? Okay? Then we look at to determine the context-specific urban data governance and stewardship attributes, practices, incentives, regulations, commitments. Here we look at what incentives are there, or what hurdles are there on the use of data. If someone conducts or produces a report that is based on data, is there any incentive? Does the central government provide any incentives to these cities? Of course, we live in some of these cities. We have heard of, for example, already, the leadership of these cities complain. For example, in Fort Portal, where we come from, or where we are based, already people, I don't know, some of you might have heard that these cities were political cities, were not ready to be established as cities. I think it was because of a political pledge that by this time this will be a city. But when you look at the required infrastructure, the support and all that is not there. So if we find ourselves in that situation, do we simply sit down and say, okay, this was a political city, let us, or it needs to be operationalized as a what? As a city. So what incentives are there from the national level to support these cities? Then also we look at the preferred data collection analysis methodologies and tools. So do we need, for example, sometimes here in Uganda we conduct a census. After 10 years we do another one. Okay, when we look at the UBOS, I don't know if you have some members from UBOS here. What data does UBOS have? How accurate is it? And how timely is it? But then again we look at how has it been collected, the data collection and analysis methodologies. Have we simply commissioned some people with umbrellas and aprons to go somewhere in the field and asking, hey, how many goats do you have? How many cows do you have? How many hens do you have? How many times do you eat? Tick, and then come back with the data. Or even sometimes they don't ask, sit down under a tree and simply feel. I think this one has. There's a time when we were collecting data, someone went to a household, said, how far is the market from here? The person said, 4 kilometers. Another person went there, how far is the market from here? Another person said, just 500 meters. Then we find that there is a what? There is a problem. So we look at the methods of data collection, which of course must be quality. Then again, we look at evidence generation and management requirements for real-time data resources for new cities. So here in terms of data and evidence generation and management requirements, once you have collected the data, still you need to manage it. Collection alone is not enough. Even if you have used very good methodologies, very accurate tools, and you have now the data, what happens? Again, after looking at the management requirements, we look at now the use. Okay? Data are enforcing data security, privacy, social. You know, the reality is, of course, we're in the plenary and members were pointing out a number of issues, but these issues of data security are real. In some circles, I have given an example. You find that, for example, you go and you apply for water, national water connection. You get a connection. After that, you get a call from URA. Hello? You are so and so? Yes. You have rentals. Can you pay rental income? For example, national water could have given information to URA that this person has newly constructed rentals and has applied for water. So when they bring, and actually there is a way they can see. There is a difference between rental, consumption of water, when you have rentals and when it is just a household. When they see that a certain amount is going beyond around like 100,000, then they suspect this is what? Rental. And then they start saying, but I was talking with someone during a break time. Recently there has been, especially in Fort Potro, I don't know when it happened in Kampala, registration of students in primary and secondary. Their names, their parents, and all that. So the data that was collected, including even IDs and all that, is with the schools. And surprisingly, some people have gone to those schools and said, by the way, so you bring, and the schools have brought all those forms to one individual to go through. So they are talking about issues of what? Of data security, privacy, societal harm. Some of those, when someone gets just your name and can do a lot of things with it. So after doing all this, we look at policy recommendations for National Statistical Office, UBOS, National Information Technology, Ministry of Local Government, and even other authorities in terms of planning on how we can be able to. So this project is basically looking at working with these partners to make sure that actually we have more informed, evidence-based, research-based, informed decisions. Okay, next. So I think these are some part of the activities. Okay. Okay, so basically, of course, as required by the ethics, we are in the process of getting ethics clearance for our engagements. We have the project team that is working under this project to implement and then also do what we call a scooping exercise based on literature review. Because we are not just going to the cities to ask but we need to look at the national level and even the East African level. Next. Then we collect the data using a number of methodologies that we shall be talking about. I don't know, the focus areas, I may not go into that because of time. I don't know if they can display. But basically, we look at the data availability, its the segregation in terms of gender, age. For example, you find in some recently I received an invoice from one of the divisions on the newly created Fort Portal Tourism City, charging me ground rent of 200,000 shillings. Now I called, said, okay, this has been generated. It has even is it called the PRA number to go and pay in URA. Okay, on what basis? Last year I paid 100,000. Now you say I pay 200,000. How have you arrived at that from 100,000 to 200? Say, no, you see now it is a new city. Okay, said, yes, it is a new city. But how did you come from 100 to, even if it were 300, even if it was 500,000, but how did you arrive at 200,000 that they should go and pay? The person did not have an answer. So when it comes, for example, you find that the government has put pressure on URA to collect tax. In the planning at city level, they may have the list of people who can pay tax. But the data that is there, you find it is old, you find it is not really up to date. And yet, for planning purposes, it would be good to have timely, reliable, and quality data, so that you can know how many people you have who are paying tax, and which type of tax, and how much you expect them to, and then eventually how you plan. You have seen some cases where you find there is a place that really should have a good road, but then you find another place which the contribution in terms of revenue, in terms of tax, is not much, but it has a road. When you ask why, they say, that leads to the home of the mayor. That one leads to a home. So if you ask, how are you making these decisions? Okay? So these are some of the things that we want to generate so that we can be able to say, when you are planning, you'll be able to make your plan, your decision is based on what? On the data. And then, of course, there is report writing and sharing. Maybe you can go to the next slide. That's when we can be able to talk about the different target respondents. Next. Okay, maybe as it's not moving. We are looking at the following categories of respondents. One at the national level. Actually, we start with the international, the East African level. We are looking at the Kenya. What is its system of data generation, data security, data management? The reason why we are looking at that, for example, we will also look at Rwanda, what is happening. We're looking at Tanzania, what is happening. Looking at Burundi, what is happening. The reason why you look at East African level, because there is this regional kind of collaboration. Okay, just a slide before. This kind of collaboration, okay? As someone mentioned in the plenary, I might be in Uganda, I have a friend in Kenya. In Uganda, I don't know, is Facebook now open? I can inform someone in Kenya, you open for me an account. And someone can open for me an account there. But I'm operating it from where? From Uganda. But my data, everything is in Kenya. And we have had issues, especially with Rwanda, Kenya, East African issues of, this country sharing its data for security reasons with another country, So we are looking at the East African, even we're talking about the East African community. So what is happening? So if you have, for example, some policy in Uganda, how does it affect the trade relations with Kenya? If the policy is in Burundi, how does it affect the trade relations with Uganda, things like that. So we have selected a number of institutions. These are not exhaustive, they are simply shortlisted, but we are open in the discussions here to be able to point out which other ones we can be able to reach out to. So that is the one level. Then we have the national level target. Okay? UBOS is one. Of course, given its government mandate, we need to be able to engage to discuss what type of data, how is it generated. Of course, honestly, when we are discussing at the round table, we're able to see how is it managed, when was it, what is the process of it, how quality is it, okay? So that we eventually, if we are, even right now, people are thinking, even when the president on the 7th of June announced that we are now in the lower middle income people in the streets were putting question marks. Sincerely, with the situation. And moreover, at a time when people economically were not feeling well, prices are high and all that. So now we have moved that our per capita income is $1,046. Okay? That the threshold which is proposed by the World Bank is 1,036. For us, we have already crossed that. We need to maintain that one for 2 years. A week later or 2 weeks later, World Bank comes, say, no, you are still actually, per capita income is 850. And you are still below. That is a statistic, that is data. Yesterday, our friend came from UBOS, the executive director, to defend the position of government, said, no, by the way, no. Actually, we are a lower middle income. That the figures that were used by World Bank are not correct. And the conclusion was that the two should come together and sit and discuss and harmonize and come up with one figure. As of yesterday in the news, Dr. Chris Kira was on, with the team was on the news. Okay? So, we are looking at the UBOS, Ministry of Local Government, because these cities are still under the Ministry of Local Government, the National Information Technology Authority, Budget Office, and the other. Here we're looking at these government, ministries, agencies, and departments as the main government is government. Government can put in policy. Government can say to make quiet civil society. The government has that mandate. So meaning that the government, number one, it has the responsibility of doing all this. And one thing I was sharing with people that actually if government did everything perfectly, 100%, would not have civil society. Because you don't have a way where you would be able to come and say, government has let us make this contribution. Government will say, we are doing everything. It's fine. So at government level, we see, of course, a number of gaps. We shall be able to sit down and paint what is happening at that level. Then we look at civil society organizations and scholarly institutions. For example, Uganda National Academy of Sciences, PESA, Akode, Police, and Wanted Witness, Parsela, and others also. The list is a short list. There could be others that you can engage that are working in the data governance space so that you can see what is happening. How are they engaging with these cities, and so that we can see what is happening in that context. Also, we are looking at the private companies, MTN, Airtel, these telecommunication companies, they have a lot of data. So how is that data contributing to the planning of the cities? Okay, I think 5 minutes will be done. How are they contributing to the cities? Or if they have, how could it, of course there are issues of security you cannot simply release, but is there a way how the data that is available could help for better planning of these cities? Okay? Because whatever you talk, whatever you text, if you have MTN to MTN, that record is there. Send mobile money, how much you are sending every month, you receive, how much you receive, all those records. How many people you have talked with, how many people have called you, how long you have talked, and even which words you have talked, all that is there. So, but also we still have other private companies that are not listed here. For example, we have the like Uber. It's a private company. Also, it has a lot of data. Safe Border, also. So all these ones, Jumia. And of course, usually say right now, as members probably must have already learned, we are in the era of data, and the religion that we are celebrating, we are now, many of us have automatically subscribed to, willing and unwillingly, is dataism. So right now, what is driving the world is data. The biggest companies at the international level that are the richest are because of data. Facebook, Amazon, you talk of Alibaba, it is because of data. And the Jumia the same, of course, it's because of data. So all those show us that actually data is very important for us. And then just a bit behind, just one part. Next. 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 You are going back. Next. No, next. No, I think maybe. Okay. Just behind. One slide. Yeah. Maybe there is a slide which you did. But there was the last category of our respondents are now at the city level. So we have the East Africa level, exactly. So this is the last part that I had not talked about, that they are at the city level. The city policy makers, the mayors, executive members, city council members, technocrats. So we shall be able to collect data from the city level, separate technocrats and politicians. Then afterwards we come back to validate the findings. And then we bring the two together. So next, just in a minute, there is a slide on the methodology. Basically, we shall be looking at qualitative, exactly. So we shall do a case study, explorative study. So this study basically is explorative. We are not looking at the sample size because ours is purposive. So at the national level, we specifically target those organizations that we can get information from, can engage and discuss, private companies. So also we shall do extensive literature review. Of course, that one follows a systematic review process to be able to do a scooping of what is happening in terms of what has been written, reports available, what are they talking about. And then after that, we do an online survey on data governance on the East African level. And then we have questionnaire, key informant interviews, and focus group discussions. Those other different levels they're talking about. So our sample size is not necessarily predetermined, but we are using a snowball approach, whereby once we have, like now what we are saying, among the shortlisted respondents, once we engage them, then you can ask, who else would you think has information on what we are talking about? Then we can be able to make a reference, and then we'll be able to move and collect data like that. Okay, I think in the interest of time, members, I can stop there for questions, comments, clarifications. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moses. So, yeah, as you've heard, Moses presenting what will be happening, and he's a principal investigator. So, at this time, would request for your feedback on what Moses has shared with us, and I think that will help us to feed into what actually, I think from here he's going to share with the IRB for ethical approval. So please, in the next 10 minutes, if we can share comments, questions, and then we close the session. Thank you. So I'll start with Martin, then go to Bernard.
Thank you, Baguma and Professor Moses. This is quite interesting. I mean, given that at the moment we have been doing something with the government of Uganda, with the Ministry of ICT and national guidance in particular, on data sharing. And we are proposing what they call a data exchange platform, and the focus is going to be tourism. So in the next 1 year, we shall be doing that with the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. We shall engage UBOS, we shall engage UNDP is also interested in undertaking that. So I think this is going to be very useful, and I think at some point we shall be, we shall be discussing. Apparently, we are supported by the same funder, so which is which is also interesting. Yeah, and we shall also be having a launch of Data Science Africa on 5th of August, in which you'll be invited, and some of the people here. And what we would like to do is to see the data use in Uganda, but also the skill sets to deal with data, improved, and yeah. So thanks very much. This has been an interesting discussion.
Thank you, Martin. Bernard?
Thank you. I think this is a very interesting study. Yeah, so this is an extremely interesting. Why? because I actually do not know any other effort before this that has tried to look at data dynamics in the new cities. So in terms of the selection of the subject matter, 100%, you are onto something that has a very serious likelihood of revealing some new insights that people don't know about the cities. I want to comment about your approach though. Given the scope, I think going East Africa, in my view, is a bit of stretching the scope. We are looking at new cities in the Ugandan context, and I personally would believe that just targeting respondents at national and district and city level would be enough, because I don't see how the East African situation would be necessarily relevant given the different systems we have. If you look at the Kenyan counties system and our districtization system, where a new administrative area is created almost every day, I don't see how any comparative insights there might be helpful, other than probably stretching your effort. In terms of the people you are targeting, I didn't see any plans to visit or to interview all the districts. My very little thing I recently did on these new cities is that actually there's barely any data when you go there now, because they are so new that a lot of information about them is still with the old district. So you'll find that in Fort Portal, for example, a lot of the relevant data you are looking for is with the Kabarore district local government. The transitions have not been complete, other than just maybe hiring new staff. Then also, UBOS has actually a lot of, you need to spend a lot of time at UBOS, because UBOS has a directorate called District Statistics and Capacity Building, and another directorate called Directorate of Statistical Coordination Services. They've been supporting districts to develop strategic plans for statistics. You know, we have a national strategy for statistics. UBOS has been supporting local governments for each district to have a local government strategic plan for statistics, which is basically a blueprint on what the district plan is to do to improve its data. And when you look at, I have a sample of several districts' plans, they very eloquently describe what their key challenges are on data and statistics. Even in new cities, some of them have, even though some are still drafts. And I think they can help you. Even you can know a lot about Fort Portal even before you go there, just by visiting UBOS. So a bit more focus on national level, even the local government, Minister of Local Government.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you. Let me go this side, then I'll come back that side. So him, and then you'll be the next. Yes, Odin.
Thank you very much, Professor. Moses. Yeah, Professor Moses. Yeah. Moses, thank you very much for the presentation. I just have a few comments, which may appear like concerns or so that may require immediate intervention. One, from your presentation, I didn't really get the exact type of data you're going to look for, because you've talked about the tourism and the oil. I don't know. I know you talked about snowball sampling and the people, but are you also going to look for how many animals are there or so and so? So what specific data are you going to look for? The second thing is you hinted on something to do with security. I just want to find out, for example, what data protection strategies are you going to employ in this, because it is very key for personal data. And then the other thing which I wanted to ask about is is about you who are going to, is it an organization or individuals? As you all know, under the Data Protection Act, you're now going to collect personal data. Are you fully registered with NITA or not? Because we need to be sure that, again, they don't come and say you've abused or misused people's data, because the obligations which are created under that. So just wanted to get those few clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey, for those insightful comments.
Thank you, Moses. I have done something similar to this in full length from end to end. And my advice would be that even if you are doing it from top down, you always need the bottom-up approach as well. So participatory approach involving citizens is key to what is being implemented. I think also my take on it is that you shouldn't completely rule out Kampala or any other developed city, because there is the concept of urban renewal, and then there is the concept of improving on developing cities. So the urban renewal informs more data that is useful for improvement than a new implementation. So it depends on what methods you're going to use. Maybe you're using grounded theory tools for collecting data, etc., etc. All this is good, but it's important to know exactly how you're going to roll out that project to collect your data. Are you going to use themes? Are you going to use what tools? What thematics are you going to use? What are the characteristics you're going to look for? And also in terms of the sources of the data. Are they legitimate? Are they not legitimate?
Thank you, Joshua. I just picked something. You said you've done this before, over and over. I don't know whether in Uganda or somewhere else. You'd like to tell us where you've done this before?
Sure. I've done this for the municipality of Copenhagen. When I was doing my PhD, I developed a decision-making system where we were working with the urban planners, and they were collecting data, putting it into a system, and I was building a visualization for decision making.
Thank you, Joshua. Anybody this side, or I go the other side? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor. My question is purely technical. What performance indicators are you using in your investigation to influence policy? Performance indicators like if somebody is educated, it influences how healthy somebody would be. So which indicators are you using to inform this policy?
Thank you. Your neighbor here.
Thank you for the presentation. My question, and it's kind of an inquiry. You're looking at two cities, Hoima and Fort Portal. My thinking is that they are from the same region, they are similar historically and culturally. So I'm asking, are you going to be able to infer your findings to the national level, given that Mbale has different dynamics, Lira has different dynamics, and the rest? Yeah, thanks.
That's a good one. I kind of expected it. So Moses, take note of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. My name is Engineer Bainom Gisha. I'm here representing several organizations. One is AirCo, Sunbird, and Makerere University. So good to see the work focusing on cities. We've been doing some work supporting cities on evidence use, especially on environmental, urban health management. So this is good to see a bit of comprehensive approach, tackling other areas. My question is on the in terms of like the outputs, whether you've been able to concretely decide what would be tangible in terms of usable data sets, or will you stop at identifying data sets, or are you also looking at potentially putting together or pre-processing some existing data sets in a format that can be used and hopefully support all the great work of data scientists that might be in this room or elsewhere? The other question I have is on the I think what would be interesting is to see how existing policies, even at the national level, like the privacy and data protection laws that we have now, how they are appropriate in the new cities contexts, especially knowing their needs. I think it would be great to internalize, take some of these policies we have and see how feasible and realistic are they in the context of these new cities. Thank you.
Thank you, engineer. Yeah. Anybody with a comment? So just two chances remaining. Yeah, they are already here.
Thanks for the organizers and Prof for the presentation. We are currently working on a project that is somehow similar. It's about Ugandan cities geographic information system, and we are trying to build a system whereby it could make these cities sustainable. For example, collecting their weather data, it could be used, and then at the same time a source of income. So we are collaborating with the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban. So I think we are willing to give any information that could be useful to this research. Thank you.
Thank you. Abubakar, right? Thank you.
Thank you. So mine is about, okay, from your presentation, I get that the assumption is the decisions that are being made currently are not data-driven, right? Oh, okay. So it's all about data-driven decision-making. Data-driven decision-making, right? And the assumption is at the moment that is not happening, but I do believe that whoever is making the decision right now does have some metric they're following or some structure that has been in place. I don't think someone just wakes up and say, even if they say the road leads to the minister's place, that is maybe a metric they've used. So how do you plan to work with these people to change maybe the way they've been doing things? Because I think it will be quite difficult for you to just say, okay, now we are changing to data-driven. I want you to change the way you've been doing your thing. That will be quite, yeah.
That's a very good one. Yeah. How do you change incentives, capacity? I don't know what you have. Yeah. Would like to give the last chance if there's anybody here from any MDA, ministry, department, or agency of government. I don't know if there's anybody here. Yeah, because I think, is anybody here? All civil society, academics. We are academia. So there's nobody from an MDA here. Very interesting, but you know, they were all invited. At least policy knows that. So can you imagine what has happened?
It's an MDA. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we are an MDA. Yes, Makerere University is an MDA. Yeah. So my question is, I think many times we, as proponents for data-informed policy or decision-making, we assume that decisions are only based on data. But there are other dimensions that actually affect decision-making. So my question is actually how we are going to take that into account, because political is also it is a dimension of decision-making. Data is just one element. So I hope that in this study, we are able to appreciate the other elements people use to make decisions, and not only assume that even if you put data on the table, the politician will need to look at the political implications and make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, engineer. Yes, mention it please in 30 seconds.
In terms of the scope, the thematic scope, what areas are you looking at? Are you looking at all the data on all the sectors, health, education, climate change? Because I would do, in my experience, probably piloting on a few of the sectors first to understand the dynamics there before you can roll out into others would be a much better approach.
Thank you very much, Bernard. I remember, Moses, I don't want to preempt your responses or your feedback to this question, but But engineer asked a very interesting question. And I remembered just something at the beginning of your presentation. You said you're calling it data informed, not data based policy making. So data informed means that there are other dimensions that inform policy. So when you say it data or evidence based, you know, people say evidence based decision making, but really it's only evidence. It's not only evidence that informs policy. So it's evidence only contributes something, informs the whole process. Maybe Moses will add on some on that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I can do it when I'm seated or.
You can sit.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much. I think yeah, basically we appreciate the input from you members, these insightful suggestions, and we have got I think nine comments or questions from 9 different members that I'd like to take some time to appreciate and respond to some which I can. There was, of course, a submission from Martin. Martin about data exchange platform, focusing on tourism. I think we are happy to take part, to see what you are doing, and then we can be able to cross-learn. Also, we have input from Bernard. Thanks for the input, especially appreciating that this effort in terms of looking at data governance in the new created cities is potentially going to contribute something. And also we have appreciated that focusing on the East African region, we shall be able to revisit and see that terms of scope. Also we have taken note that we shall be able to look at the old, for example, like Kabarole and Kabarole, since we'll be having data about the cities, and also to focus on the UBOS. Okay, but then you also added the last question about the scope of data. So basically, Bernard, to respond to that question, we are at this stage doing what we call an exploratory kind of study, whereby we are just going to find what is there and in which form. We are not going deep to look at the generation of data that we are going to generate data for these cities. No, we are still doing exploratory to be able to understand what is there. For example, if we say health, does it have data? In which form? Is it soft, hard? If it is agriculture, so we're not going to the details to analyze data and produce a report of no, we are basically doing an exploratory study, like a fact-finding study. What is there and what is not there? What system is there, what system is not there? Then other details now of what needs to be done will be informed by this exploration. There were also, there was input from Adrian, and was asking what data are you actually looking for? And also there was a question about that data that we're looking for, is it in terms of security and in terms of protection of that data. So actually what we are looking at, we are not collecting any individual data. We are actually looking at what data is available at the city level. We are even not going to, if there is data, we're not going to look into the details, the specifics of, no, what data is available, how is it being used in, exactly. Not, maybe that one will come later when we come to specific and generating data, but those systems are what we shall be able to propose later depending on what we find is happening. Yeah. And then also we had a question from Joshua about bottom-up versus top. Yes, actually, maybe in the presentation it may not have been indicated. We are looking at why we are looking at what is happening at the national level is basically for scooping purposes, to understand the landscape. So that when we are at the municipality level, we are informed and we can easily ask intelligent questions to the technocrats at the city level. So, but the actual work that we are doing in terms of what is available, data, how it is being used, we are looking at it at the city level. And importantly, this process is highly participatory. When you look at our tools, you find that at the end of the engagement, we shall be able to inquire, what should we do? What works? What does not work, and why? So that eventually when we make proposed interventions, then these are the interventions that are actually owned by the participants from where we got the information. Because we cannot propose from outside, you do this, which does not work. There are some dynamics within. There are some dynamics within cities that when you are outside, you may not know. And yet they are there. So they will be able to tell you, this can work, this cannot work. So we have taken note of that participatory kind of participatory nature of the project that we shall highly pursue. And also, of course, we have taken note of the urban renewal to be able to see what we can be able to look into, for example, Kampala and the renewal in other cities. Okay? And also, the themes and tools we shall use. Of course, it is implied by my previous submission that basically we are doing an exploratory study on the current state. I would say, in short, the current state of data and data systems within the urban context, but specifically in the newly created cities of Hoima and Fort Portal. So that one links with the submission from, I didn't pick his name, about the performance indicator that we are using. Okay? So still, we don't have specific indicators, but we have our indicators which are measuring the progress of our activities in terms of what we have been able to do, but not necessarily in terms of, does this data indicate this? If you find that there is these many farmers, does it indicate this and this situation? We're not yet there. But basically, we are only looking at the situation, the state of data that's available. Then the question from Innocent about how to infer the findings to other cities. Of course, usually in such a kind of work, our wish would have been to go to all, how many cities are in Uganda? But 11 now. But of course, usually you look at the resources, the time, and also in terms of financial resources, human resources, and the time. So, but we believe that the system, these cities are systems of government, and the government is one, it's the government of Uganda. Even if there's some dynamics, we may not expect that Mbale is totally going to work differently from Gulu. The system that we shall find operating in these cities is likely not to be deviating from other cities. So with that assumption, we believe that, and also with what I have indicated in terms of time and resources availability, zeroing on the two cities, we believe can be able to give us a picture of what is happening in these newly created cities. And of course, time allowing, resources allowing, then we can be able to use the findings that we have found within Hoima and Fort Portal for the other cities to learn from, or to appreciate, or to see where they can. So that is the reason why we do not have all the other cities included. And there is, of course, submission from engineer. I'm about to finish engineer. Yeah. Engineer, of course, submission on the scope and the data sets we are looking at. Also, there was the submission on the policies, and also you had a submission on other ways of making decisions. Yeah, so of course, I have already mentioned in terms of the scope, what we are focusing on is basically, of course, data, but looking at the exploratory without going to the details. And the policies, yes, that is one of our main focus at the extended literature review, to look at, even includes policy review, what policies are there, how good, how bad, and that is bad. And then, of course, other ways we appreciate, we know, especially in Uganda, not only in Uganda, even in other countries, America, Europe, that politics plays a very important role in decision making. Very, very much. So we cannot ignore that. But at the same time, that should not make us forget that this decision has been a political decision and is not based. We need to, yes, indeed, this is. Recently, there was these issues of teachers striking the arts. Of course, the president has his position on supporting the science. Okay? So when we're analyzing, is paying of science teaches more than arts, a political or a non-political move. So you can discuss. But of course, we appreciate that even when data is available, and in terms of data security, because even sometimes in many cases, government can use that excuse, say, for security reasons, we need your personal data. For security reasons, someone will call the bank and say, this Baguma, how much money does he have in the bank? And the manager will panic. Within 1 minute, the manager of the bank will release that even on the phone, as long as someone says, hello, I am so-and-so from CMI. I need to get information from. I'm telling you that. So in most cases, we need to appreciate some of these things, they are there. But at the same time, we need to be aware that something has been done. Yes, we appreciate for political reasons, but there's no data that is supporting it. And that one remains a fact, especially. So, but we appreciate, we know that actually. Political, in most cases. Yeah, so Abaka, I think that one, Abaka must have been the last, especially, yeah, looking at there was, of course, cross-learning from what is happening in the Uganda cities and what is being planned. I think there was an indication of what you are doing. You can be able to learn from there, and you can be able to exchange notes. Okay? And there was the last one, I did pick the name. Current data, how to change. Didn't pick this one very well, but I think it was referring to, it was a question from her. Yeah. So I think that's basically what we captured. And thank you very much for the input. And we look forward to working with you more.
Yeah, there is a thank you. There is a seasoned researcher, there's a seasoned researcher here who would like to close for us the session, Bonita. So I would like to give her 30 seconds to help us close the session with those wonderful words, about, insights about research and all this kind of thing. Madam, your question was about what?
I think it was related to what engineer said. It was about, how you hope to work with the people who are currently making the policies to convince them to take up the data-driven, exactly. Yeah. So yeah.
Her question was about what incentives are we going to put in place, or do we envisage? Because these guys are already making policies, whether there's data or not. So how are we going to change that? So it's about, what are the incentives, capacity building, to make sure that they change that attitude. Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah, so you have to have that in mind. Incentives, attitude, something maybe to collect data on that, understand that, yeah. Please, Bonita, kindly close for us this session. Thank you.
So after me, no one is talking.
I don't think there's anything.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. Thank you very much, Moses, for the presentation. Thank you, everyone who was able to come and listen to Moses and Baguma speak to us about their study that they want to do. It's a very good study that they want to do, but I share the same sentiments as everyone in the room, most especially about the scope. I know if you want to submit to IRB, they will ask you about the scope. For instance, why do you want to go to East Africa? Why do you want to look at the East African countries? When you were sharing, I started looking at why you wanted to go to East African countries. I looked at Tanzania. Is it because maybe it has also many tourism sites? Is it what you're looking for from Kenya or from Rwanda? So I think going to East African countries would be stretching your scope, and given that also the settings of the cities are different. So I agree with what Bernard said about the scope going as far as East Africa. I think keeping it in Uganda will be best. But also you need, I know Moses has said it is mostly exploratory, but with qualitative, you end up even asking more questions and getting a lot of information that at the end of the day, when you reach analysis, you actually fail to know how to use this information because it is a lot. It goes way beyond what you want to do. So in terms of, I don't know if it is Bernard who talked about it, in terms of looking at the departments or the sectors, I think you still need to go back and look at what do we want to look at. All the sectors, or can we at this point also reduce some of the sectors, okay? Yeah, so for me, mostly it will be the technical part, especially with IRB. I don't know which IRB you want to go to, because I know the IRB asks many questions. So why do you want to go here? What are you going to gain from here? What is the knowledge contribution to this? Then the other thing is about the politics. You know, you're working with a local government, so there's a lot of politics at every point. So you have to put that into consideration. You have maybe to have some gatekeepers to help you penetrate the local governments and something like that. So other issues we can discuss away from this session. I'll be happy to share more information. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you everybody who made it to this session to listen to Moses and Baguma. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bonita said nobody else should speak after her. So please, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Let's go for the closing session in the plenary. Oh, there's another session coming.